community and asked, what do you want? The black man was trying to tell him, I want the same thing that you left at home when you come here and told me, ask me what I want.
If he asks you, was our life? If he asks you, was our life? You tell him I was crying. You tell him I was crying. I don't want no leg unshackled. I don't want no leg unshackled. I don't want no leg unshackled. It hurts my leg.
Father Sam.
You know, as Christ simply took a glass of wine and a piece of bread and said, you know, this is the symbol of how he's going to be with us, I'm almost committed to the fact that today it's through a glass of beer and a pretzel that we communicate to one another in a situation like a bar in Watts.
What's wanted most by the people of Watts?
I guess the whole bag that comes in when a child is born into our American society and who is white and has a future to be a participating part of the American scene, the American system. See, we did a dirty trick to the black man. First of all, we taught him English, which was a mistake, and then we let him listen to the radio, and then we let him watch television. And in all of these things, he can see people experiencing, having, and holding this kind of thing, and he says, why can't I have a piece of this action? There are men all around us in Watts who have said, forget it. There's nothing we can do. The only thing we can do is sit around, get a beer, get a taste, talk to the people who walk around, maybe play cards, maybe play craps for a while. This guy, you know, when you talk to him, and you've probably met him since you've been here, he's got a lot to say, but he's really a shadow of a man. If it were possible to create a man without bone structure, without heart, whatever we're part of internally, this is the man who lives in some of the areas of Watts. I don't know. I once made a wild statement that I've been damned for several times, that I said if I were a black man, I'd be a Muslim. I know if I were living under this kind of a condition, if I could see my wife bringing money in to support me, if as a man I were castrated, as I've referred to, I don't know what I'd do. I think that perhaps I would join a revolt. I hope there's not going to be a revolt because, see, the power structure doesn't understand revolt any longer. Although our country was born on revolution, we have now got a system that says no more revolution, only, you know, sit back and be quiet and we will answer your problems through bureaucratic means. I believe if I were a black man living in Watts, and if the right incident came along that created a revolt, I couldn't stand idly by without being involved in it. And of course, the power structure at this point is walking on eggs because they don't know what the incident might be. That probably is because they're not trying to find the root causes of the problem.
Is there no hope?
Sure, there's hope. There's got to be hope. And I guess the greatest hope comes from the spirit of the black people of our country. If they have been willing to bear the cross, if they have been willing to die on Calvary for us as they have done here in our country, then there has got to be hope by their sacrifice. But if the white man does not join this kind of sacrifice, if he is not willing to join his black brother, then there is no hope. And then we are, of all people, as St. Paul said, the most frustrated and the most deluded of people.
Howard K. Smith in the special ABC survey on Negro attitudes when ABC Scope The Face of Watts continues in just 1 minute.
Hello, everybody. I'm Kurt Gowdy, and I'll be your host on The American Sportsman, 11 fast-paced shows in full color devoted to the best hunting and fishing around the world. We'll take you to diamond-clear Mexican waters where Bing Crosby hosts Joe Brooks fishing for the greyhounding marlin. To Canada, along with Fess Parker and Archer Fred Bear to stalk the awesome grizzly. Across the Atlantic, where General Curtis LeMay hunts grouse in the red stag of Scotland. Colorado, for a hand battle between a mountain lion and actor-outdoorsman Alex Cord. To the African plains, where Joe Foss seeks the most dangerous of big game, the Cape Buffalo. And the American Sportsman will premiere with Phil Harris hunting the crafty ring-necked pheasant in the American heartland of Nebraska. Then on to exotic India for a tiger shoot with actor Craig Stevens.
Don't miss The American Sportsman tomorrow afternoon here on ABC.
It is clear from what we have seen that we need to learn a lot more about our cities and the people in them, or there will be more Watts. One way to find out is by journalism such as that you've just seen. Another way is scientific sampling to systematize and measure causes, and that is what ABC News opinion analyst John Kraft has been doing all over the Los Angeles riot area. John, can you tell us about your survey? First of all, to the naked eye, Watts did not seem to be a slum. We had individual cottages in those pictures and lawns and space, so why should Watts blow up and not tenement-ridden Baltimore?
Watts is a great deal like Baltimore in terms of attitudes of the people in both areas. However, there are two important distinctions. First, it might best be summed up by the person who told us that I went to Watts expecting a land of milk and honey, and I ended up with nothing. In other words, there may have been a greater frustration in Watts, a greater gap between anticipation and reality. The second area is that community organization seemed to be lacking, and there seemed to be a lack of leadership within the community for the people there.
John, in all the Negro militant activities we've seen so far, we've always been able to identify the leadership, organizations like SNCC and CORE and Dr. Martin Luther King. What happened to them? We heard nothing about them. Did they play no role?
Well, we asked several questions on leadership. Perhaps the most revealing was one that we asked, who should have acted to stop this? And we have here a list in order of importance of several of the responses which were given. They refers to, of course, the white establishment, and as you run down the list, you find nowhere any mention of CORE or NAACP or Martin Luther King or even of the churches in the area. There seems even to be a crying need for leadership.
Well, what about the story that some people told that the people of Watts didn't actually do this? It was just hoodlums from outside who capitalized on an angry incident.
Well, there may or may not have been hoodlums from outside, but it really, in a way, they would have been superfluous because we have a tabulation that shows the degree of participation of the people living in the district themselves. You notice 3% say, yes, I participated, 4% say, yes, a member of my family did. This 7% in total is sufficient to have caused the riot and checks out pretty well with all other figures we've seen.
I noticed in some of the interviews we just saw that some people were rather proud of this incident, which in fact was a disaster. What comment have you on that?
Proud because of success. Now here is a table that shows the effect of the riot in Watts and compares the attitudes we found in the three other cities. Notice that nearly half of these people say it helped, which is twice the number who said that it hurt. In other words, it was successful. And
they got through.
They got through. They communicated.
Now, you used a special technique in this survey. Could you tell us about it?
Aside from standard survey approaches, there was one important difference, and that is that we did not import whites from the outside, nor did we import Negroes from the outside to conduct the interviewing. We went in and very carefully trained these people to do the interviewing of their own neighbors, in effect.
Now, when was this survey completed that you're talking about?
Well, the interviewing itself was completed just this past Sunday, a week ago.
Well, now, in the view of the people you talked to, what were the causes? Can you list the causes of the trouble in order of importance?
Well, we do have a list of causes. You see, leading off the top of the list is no job opportunity, and then spontaneous combustion which is a combination of several things, grievances that had been around for quite some time. Then as the list goes on, we come down to racial humiliation. 6 is police brutality. I might mention in that connection that about half the people said that they believed brutality had gone on, and about 1/4 of the people reported in the survey that they had actually witnessed it themselves.
What do you mean by racial humiliation exactly?
Racial humiliation is another form of brutality in the sense that it's the business of calling a man, an adult man, boy, or making that adult man, for example, tie the shoes of a policeman or a sheriff.
Can you compare the situation in Watts briefly to those other cities you surveyed?
Well, I think the quickest comparison is the anticipation or outlook for integration as we found it in the 2 areas. Notice these figures they're the same in Watts and in the other 3 cities. Not in my lifetime, is basically the same. And as you run down the list, you see that there are similarities right across the board. Watts, in other words, is not very much different from the other 3.
Well, briefly, will it happen again?
Will it happen again? We asked this question. We asked it in Watts. As a matter of fact, we see here that 37% feel that it could happen again. It will or it could. But the more dramatic comparison is this one here, where the attitudes outside of Watts in the other 3 cities are much more pessimistic.
Well, even for that unoptimistic conclusion, John Kraft, we thank you very much indeed.